Hey everyone, it's Hirsch Wilson, and it's finally June. It's been a tough week, a painful week, and a week that has been probably a long time in coming around. Elie Wiesel, the Holocaust survivor and writer, wrote, "Wherever men or women are persecuted because of their race, their creed, or their political views, that place for the moment must become the center of the universe." So the center of our universe is now our cities. I want to start with a story. It was August 1968. That spring, Robert Kennedy and Dr. King had both been assassinated. There were riots and protests all across the country. Cities were burning. The Vietnamese War was raging. 17,000 Americans and an untold number of Vietnamese had been killed. I had just turned 18, and like most of my friends, I had just received my draft notice. My brother-in-law, George Robertson, drove to Newark to enlist, but was turned around at the New York City limits because the city was in flames. Ironically, that same year, there was a flu pandemic. 100,000 Americans were killed by the Hong Kong flu. The flu had been brought to America by soldiers returning from Vietnam. On the evening of August 26th, I watched the Democratic National Convention standing up with my dad. And there was pandemonium in the hall. There were riots outside, and the police attacked the protesters and the riots. And the chant that summer was, "The whole world is watching." I remember thinking then that the country was being torn apart. There was the war. There was the astonishing level of accepted and promoted racism. I felt like we couldn't survive. My father, who was only 38 then, was also visibly shaken. But he put his arm around me and said, "We'll get through this." Of course, now, in the middle of a pandemic, with 100,000 dead, 40 million unemployed, and now watching George Floyd be killed at the hands of the Minneapolis police, my hometown, and watching cities burst into flames, I have the same feeling. This is too much. We cannot handle this. We are being torn asunder. Yet I can still hear my father's voice. "We'll get through this." Then I thought he meant that they were kind and rational grown-ups who would get us through this. Now I understand that I missed his point. If we are to get through this, if we are to get through the pandemic and the structural racism, it's up to us to be the kind, the rational, and the occasional rebellious grown-ups. Whether you are 18 or 70, as my daughters constantly remind me that I am. For the kids I coach in high school, and for those of you who are going off to college, I feel bad for you. But the truth is, we don't get to pick the times we live in. The times pick us. For the rest of us, it's the same story. Life is calling out to us now, and it's our responsibility to respond. But the other thing about "we'll get through this" is that it's not about getting through to the past, to the status quo. We need to set our sights higher. We need to get through this by becoming stronger and more compassionate. We will get through this, but it's up to us to paint the future. It is up to us to be the change that we want to see. Anne Frank, while hiding from the Nazis before she was taken to the camps, wrote in her diary how wonderful it is that no one has to wait a single moment before starting to improve the world. So let's start. Be brave, be kind, and we'll get through this.